welcome to Leeds Testers Gathering. So this is the first time I've compared an event, so please be kind. But I am really privileged to have been asked this evening. So yeah, hello. So are there any newbies in the room tonight? First timers? Yeah? So obviously everyone's been here for the first time before. I remember, it's gone off again. I remember my first time, it was about 4 years ago. I was relatively new to testing at the time. I'd sort of moved back to Leeds from being abroad, and really kind of before that moment in time I'd made testing up myself, didn't really know what it was about. And yeah, I think the Testers Gathering for me was where it started. It's where I realised that there was a community there, that there were people that were willing to share their knowledge, to, you know, really sort of socialise and help and share, and it's still messing itself up again. So yeah, just like, if you see anyone on their own, be nice to them. You know, it might be their first time, they might not know anyone, and, you know, remember your first time and how difficult it was to engage with people and talk to them. So yeah, just be kind. Yeah, and don't be a jerk. You know, we're all here to learn, we're all here to share. Stole that from him. You know, just be kind and nice. Right, okay. So a bit about me. I'm a test manager and my Twitter handle is @MidnightTester if you want to follow me. And there's something that I've been learning recently, that apparently test managers are endangered species. So I don't know if anyone else is a test manager in the room tonight. This one here, yeah? So apparently we're on the decline. Our skills are, you know, not as required as they used to be. So that kind of freaked me out a little bit, and I was thinking about this, and I thought, like, what do I do that doesn't matter? Because obviously I'm busy all day, so, you know, people don't need test managers, and then what am I doing? So I had to think about it, and when I think about traditional test management, I think back to those skills around project management and resourcing and scheduling and all those things that you associate with like a waterfall model, and that's not really how organisations are operating right now. The skills you need are around like building a community, developing people, coaching teams. It's gone again. And so I don't think it's that test management's dead per se, but I just think you have to rethink what it means to be a test manager and make that work for your organisation. And I'd say that is the same for all testing. You know, we've got so many articles out there around automation's going to replace manual testers, and, you know, there's all this stuff there around how your job's in jeopardy. But no, if you're smart and if you are doing something that can't be automated, then you're probably safe in, you know, in your career. And we're always going to need smart individuals to make decisions and choices, and that's really important. So don't ever think that your job's dead. It's just, what does it mean in the modern world, and how can I adapt myself to make myself really useful in that environment? So anyway, I'll stop gassing. So making this event happen, you know, we've got sponsors. So I think this evening Godel Technologies are sponsoring the event. So, you know, that's why we're here. We've got beer, we've got pizzas. You know, actually sort of providing that stuff makes you all want to come. It stopped again. The organisers 10-10, you know, I think it's, you know, it's really important that a lot of work goes into organising these events and making these events happen, and without these people you wouldn't all be here, and you wouldn't be networking, you wouldn't be meeting people, and you wouldn't be sharing knowledge, and then obviously getting better at what you do. And Future Labs for hosting it as well. You know, without a venue, it's gone again. Again, without a venue, we wouldn't be here. So, you know, big up to all these people that have actually made tonight happen. And then also you know, if we don't have a community, if we don't have people that care about what they do, then you wouldn't all be here. So yeah, thanks everyone. All right, so we've got 3 speakers this evening. So first up is Elena from Godel Technologies, and she's going to be talking about context-driven testing. So I'm quite intrigued to understand how you don't use books, methodologies, and all that sort of stuff to kind of come up with a testing approach. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to learn a bit more about that. Then we'll be having some beer, some soft drinks, if you don't drink beer, and also some pizzas. Just like to point out to you that this is not pizza, but I was really rushed on my presentation. So it was all I had in my images on my laptop when I was stuck in a university building without any Wi-Fi. So it's actually a comparison to, so it was a UX talk that I did. It was about UX, and it was basically saying, like it was comparing McDonald's to Five Guys and about how it's not the same thing, is it? So yeah, if you notice, there are two burger companies there, McDonald's and Five Guys. It's not the same thing. It's a burger, but is it a burger? No. Right. In fact, I think McDonald's now are not apparently fit for human consumption. That was like an article I read the other day. And then we have a flash talk by Ashton, and he's talking about an end-to-end framework for Angular and AngularJS applications. It's called Protractor. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to understand how that works. Yeah, interacting with a browser as a user would. And then Eddie Stokes is going to be talking about his periodic table of testing. What? Did I get the name wrong? No? Eddie. Obviously that's the real periodic table, but he's going to be using an example of how he's created one for testing, which I'm really intrigued about because it's some work we've been doing at the moment around sort of, you know, those like skills you need as a tester, being able to articulate and visualize that stuff to help people with their testing, but also with their testing careers as well. And then, yeah, community stuff. The atelier was on the 9th of May. It was absolutely excellent. The organisers, again, you know, put so much work and effort into making that day happen. And I think, you know, the feedback from everyone that I've spoken to in particular just said it was amazing. So, you know, thanks to the team, and hopefully we'll have some more in the future. Great venue in Wharf Chambers, you know, really promotes diversity, which is something I'm really passionate about. You know, the stats showed that as well, the fact that they had sort of 65 to 35 male to female ratio, which you just don't see at tech events. And also the stats from the speakers were really fair and test and non-test, so it's really good to sort of see that non-sort of testing job families had turned up to kind of share their point of view, and also just to add to the mix. And the mic goes off when that goes off, so I have to stop talking. You know, because we work with these guys every day. You know, we work with developers, we work with business analysts, and it's really important that we can learn from them as much as they can learn about what we do, because it makes them care about it a lot more. So yeah, let's get on with it. I'll stop gassing. Just to sort of say, you know, we're here to question, we're here to share, and we're here to learn. So, you know, feel comfortable with asking a question. No question is a stupid question. So, you know, if there's something in that talk that you don't understand, you want to know more about, you know, don't feel you can't put your hand up and just ask, because that's really important. So, yeah. So we've got Elena from Godel Technologies.
So I worked in quality assurance about 9 years. And I worked for different clients in different domains with their own specifics. And what I understood with time that that you need to be quite mature to make your own decisions and to take responsibility to choose the techniques and the approaches and what you do, and not to blindly following all what is written in the books and these best practices, because best practices, it means that you are not able to be better. So what is context? I'm sorry. What is context-driven testing? It advocates testing based on the context of each different project, as opposed to go by book methodologies testing or some fixed notions of best practices. And it is more, it's not a technique, it is a test approach, because it recommends to use your own test techniques and knowledges and skill test, deliverables test, objectives for each project, looking into the details of a specific situation. So it doesn't ignore best practices. It just to give you an advice to play with it. What are the main principles of this approach? So firstly, it is context. The value of any practice depends on the context. No best practices. There are good practices in the context, but there are no best practices. People working together are the most important part of any project context. And unpredictability. You never know how your project will change with time, so you need to be aware that it can unfold in not predictable way. Product is a solution. If a problem is not solved, the product doesn't work. Testing is an intellectual process. So a good software testing is a challenging intellectual process. And judgment and constant judgment skill. So only throughout judgment skill exercised cooperatively through the entire project, able to give you right things at the right time, and to make the best to get the best results to test our products. What are the types of testing based on the context we have? It is context oblivious, context specific, context driven, and context imperial. Firstly, context oblivious. What does it mean? It's to be unaware of the relationship between the way you do things and why you do them in this way. For example, people who completely context oblivious, they simply don't attend events like this, because what is the point? Context specific. It is when you have the problems at your project, and you already found the solution, and you use this solution, but the problems, they don't change, so you don't adapt your solution, so it's quite stable. Context imperial. It is when you know the best practices, and you are trying to apply them to all the projects and to all situations. You don't try to play with them. You just simply stubborn. And for example, when you don't have specification, but you still need to test, but you, some testers, they refuse. Sometimes they refuse to test till they get enough specification. Why not to try to do it without that? Like just find the way, the technique to get the results without wasting the time. And context-driven. So context-driven testing. It's to behave, it's like literally there are no best practices, but there are good practices in the context. It's about learning about practices, decomposing and recomposing them to fit in the way you need. Now is my favorite part. I want to make an example of real life situation. Like you know, like I think that everybody has a driver license here, and everybody knows how to drive, and you know how to switch to the gear, you know how to press the accelerator, and everybody knows highway code. But and it seems that in each country it should be the same, right? Like driving is about the same, just sit behind the wheel and do it. But if to look into the context, I'm from the country where we have a lot of road signs, and you know this yellow rhomb, that means main road. I'm from a country where we have a fine for each time when we crossing the street in the wrong place, against the red light, and even if it's night and it is empty street. So when I came to the UK first time in London, I was absolutely shocked frustrated by the chaos on the streets, because I couldn't I didn't have a clue how these two-deckers buses, cars, cabs, they were able not to hit all these crowds of pedestrians crossing here and there against the red lights. I couldn't get why they didn't honk to these pedestrians, and where was that sign of the main road? How to guess that is main road? So then I realized that if to think about the context, no, like it's organized. Everything is organized. Just we didn't think about it. So it means that the drivers in UK, they're context specific, because you know the problem, you're aware how to deal with them, and you can, like, it's not a problem for you because you know the solution. So if I decide to sit behind the wheel here, I will be context driven, because I need to apply my best practices. I know how to drive, but I need to probably start driving at night. Right. The second part of my presentation, it is some examples from Godel projects. I will make some comparison. So Esport, it is a complex multi-component financial system. What we have in the context? Plenty of new functionality, like all the time, constantly we get a lot of new functionality. Frequent priority and requirement changes. We just can't change this situation. They always change the priorities. No specifications. Yes, we don't have any specifications at all, but we have Jira story cards, so we still have something. Lack of technical BA. We do have BAs, but they are business oriented, and but because of the complexity of the system, we do need technical people. Our developers write unit tests. Thank you. What about approach? Approach, how to deal with what we got from the context. Firstly, sprints. QA sprints is one sprint behind of death. It doesn't sound very agile, yeah? But in the context that we have, it is the best way, it is the optimal way to deal with, get the goal and the results, what our clients want from us. Let me to explain. So, because our BAs, they are not technical, they write stories like business requirements. I want a ball jump in front of them from my monitor. But it means that we need to change a lot of components in the system, and it takes time. And our client, they want the functionality to get functionality complete, They don't want pieces, so we don't test back-end and front-end separately. We test it end-to-end. So it takes a lot of time. Not a lot of time. Just in this way, it's much easier and optimal way to use separate sprint for QA. Functional tests by developers. Our developers, they write functional tests. It's great. It's much easier to test because we start testing only after they run their functional test. Why we got that? Because at the beginning we didn't have automation. Now we started automation, but we didn't have. But we needed to be sure that we have the quality, good quality of the software. So it was based on the context. It was chosen as right technique and practice, like a good practice in this context to have functional tests by developers. Automation regression tests. Right now, we want to replace functional tests written by developers by tests written by our AQA, because why to waste time twice? Sorry, twice. Integration testing, we don't have test cases because it is wasting of time. If we write test cases, then then our clients will get their product much later. So we just write BDD acceptance criteria, write in Jira cards, and then our AQA use them as their scenarios. We have three levels of testing. It's QA, UAT, and prod. The most important part is definitely on QA, but we need also because of security and because our clients, they have different versions of components, and so on the prod it emulates real environments, and because all the context again. We need to have tight communication with our developers, business analysts, and testers and product owners. Because of a lack of technical BA, we decided that our QA can behave as business QA. They write requirements because they are more senior. Because all our QAs, they're senior. And they are quite technical, so they write requirements and help our developers to understand also how the system should behave. And continuous integration is obvious. Another project, FE4, I think you noticed that label somewhere in the internet, definitely. So it's what we have in the context. A global feedback engine integrated with e-commerce platforms, speed and complete functionality is the goal. So for the client, speed is the most important, and they don't want to get the functionality by parts. They want it as a complete functionality always. Because of that, releases with unfixed scope, specifications, and deep analysis made by our BA. Sprints, they don't care about sprints, they care about functionality. So sprints is just time measured to count. Constant changes of release date. It's not, again, date is not important, speed and complete functionality. Constant UI rework, and absolutely no automation, no tests, no unit tests, but though they have really high quality code. What was chosen as an approach? Firstly, all of the testers, they're manual, and they did regression manually. I know it's very long, but it was the best option, the best idea if to base on the needs of the client. a lot of UI testing and usability testing, cross-browser testing. UAT is done also by our QA team. So as we want also to influence on the situation and maybe to change a bit the context, we initiated automation regression testing, and now a client understands that they do need it. And to sum up, I would say that both of the clients, they're really happy what they get at the end. They're really happy with the results. They're really happy with the quality of the work that Godel provided. And all of our clients, they have individual, like we provide individual approach for each our client. And each project is built up based on the context we have. We do have all our stuff is very professional, and we try to implement, to apply all practices and techniques that they know in the way to get our client happy. Yeah, and the third part of my talk is just how to start being context-driven. So what we need to consider to be context-driven is needs and goals of the project and our client, skills of the testers we have, development methods, timescales, user availability, risks, communication requirements, and sure changing of the context. What we need to apply, firstly, is questioning. We need to question we need to ask a lot of questions, everybody, like development team, our product owners, stakeholders, other testers. We need to explore the project and the context that we have, to make analysis and to apply our experience and our techniques and practices. What we need to avoid is assumptions, prejudice, and blind practice following, because we have just to ask ourselves, what is the reasoning behind wanting this or that practice? If to compare with agile testing, it's probably we could probably call it agile testing, especially if to answer on all these questions, and all these questions they will have answer yes. Like, do we put more value in individuals and their interactions over process or tools? Yes. Seeing working software over documentation, right? Collaborating with our customers, yeah. Responding to change over following the plan, right? Yeah. But no any context-driven tester would like to be limited to their techniques of that or this or that methodology. For example, extreme programming. So we need to develop our skills to play with the techniques and practices. So yeah, it's just a quite relaxed talk. When not to do context-driven testing. When your aim is actually to change this context, when others are entirely responsible for your quality of your work, or you work in the same company since ages and it is your first job and nothing changes, so there is no sense it's very stable, so there is no sense to change something. Yeah, so that's all. So to sum up, I just wanted to say that if you want to be responsible for the quality of your own work, and practices will not solve all your problems. you have to practice they are good in the context. I don't say that you need to hate them or to ignore them. You just have to not to worship them. Thank you.
So one of the things that I noticed in the presentation
Yeah.
was the idea of not using unit tests on the project.
No, it's not right.
So I guess my question is, how can you quickly respond to change when further along down the line, if the requirements get updated or clients want new functionality, how can you sort of be certain that you're not breaking anything that's existing?
Could you please reword this because probably I didn't get the question.
So if in future your developers have to change the
Yeah.
existing code, how can they have a degree of certainty?
Yeah, you mean about unit testing?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that it's good practice not to have unit tests. I love how it was on Esport. They had a functional test and unit tests. It is really good practice. Just client, the client that didn't want unit testing, he didn't care about testing at all in general. They just needed right now, right here, right now. So we just gave the client what they needed.
Do you not worry how that reflects on you as an organisation?
They give us, this company, very good reference calls. So we did our work well.
So I don't think that's context-driven testing, but we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see someone talking about it, and
Yeah.
you should probably acknowledge the creators as well.
It's to develop your creativity. So you already all of you were very professional, and you know how to do your job. Just sometimes you need to be more playful.
So my name's Ashton. I've been an analyst at 1010 for about a year now. I've been working in automation for about the past 3 months. If any of you guys attend other meetups around Future Labs, you probably see me here. It's pretty much a second home. Try to attend as many as I can around the tech sphere here. And I love a really good Spotify playlist. So anything for the summer, winter, anytime really, good playlist. And
Did you build the Thames barrier as well?
yeah, actually, an extra fun fact. I didn't want to include it here because it would get really complicated. But that's me in 2013, actually, giving a visit on a university trip. So I've been back and forth to the UK for a number of years now. With that being said, I've probably noticed my accent's a little wonky. So I kind of consider this in advance, and I kind of did a quick conversion chart for a Canadian to the UK. So if I say any of these things, this is what I actually mean. So just so there's no communication. I do have to especially mention this one because I have gone some trouble from some more traditionally speaking individuals in the professional world using pants when I should have said trousers. So just a disclaimer. All right, so today's talk, what I want to kind of go through, automation is kind of worth taking a look at. Again, this is kind of more so directed to people who are maybe interested, just kind of they've heard about, they're maybe like just a functional tester, they want to kind of dabble into it, or maybe other people kind of in your teams, project owners, product owners, and maybe just other people in the company just kind of wondering what's this automation business about. Specifically, I'll kind of briefly go over Protractor, kind of run you through just a really simple basic example of how you can kind of get it running. Basically tonight, if you really want to kind of go through the whole tutorial. And then if you are learning a new test tool, how can you kind of pick something up like this a little bit faster? Or if you're a bit more experienced yourself, how can maybe a new grad or a younger person on your team pick up and kind of understand a new tool a bit faster? So really briefly on the automation part, is it kind of worth checking out? if any of you heard that there was kind of the Digital Leaders talk just on Monday here in Leeds, it's an annual event. The main keynote presentation was all on automation and AI, so definitely something that they're making a shout of, not just in the testing world, but kind of throughout all the different industries. So one quote that just kind of summed it up for me was somebody I kind of find as an inspiration right now, Quincy Larson, who's kind of empowering people to learn about the tech world. This last kind of sentence right here, there's a lot going on, a lot changing, but it's definitely also possible to adapt to it. So that's what I want to kind of go through today. How can you kind of adapt to these new tools? New technology is always coming out. How can we kind of do our best to keep up with it? So before we do that, we're going to go back a little bit. So I wish I could say I was like a child prodigy at the age of 9, and I was writing code and everything on my computer. But my point here is that I don't have a background in like computer science or anything like that. So if that's anybody's thinking in the back of their mind, oh, that's maybe my excuse. I didn't take this in university or whatnot. Don't worry, I didn't either. A lot of people actually think I did stuff like this when I was growing up in Canada. A few of those things, I definitely like to get a toboggan ride when it was snowing outside. But really, this was me about 8 or 9 years old, and I really just did average kid stuff all the way through. So stuff that don't come from any specialized background, however, I'm kind of learning this kind of same thing that you guys would. So then kind of came graduation, kind of did the typical school route. And I want you guys all just right now to think of a time kind of after that kind of graduation period, maybe just before you started college or going to university, that you kind of tried something that was a bit different than kind of what all your friends are doing, or learning some sort of special skill that was a bit different than what your kind of friends were doing at the time, and then how you kind of approached to learn that skill. So for me, after kind of the secondary, high school type period in my life, I ended up going into, not actually going to university, but I became a chef. And I thought I'd just try this out, see how this went. All my friends were kind of moving on to university. But I was like, okay, I'll try this out, test this out, try and get into the working world, figure things out at the time. And that was kind of my experience. I had to kind of learn a whole new set of skills. They didn't teach advanced kind of cooking in my classes in school. So this was me trying to kind of keep up with a fast-paced environment at the time. So I'll bring this up in a bit later, but hope you all have that kind of experience in your heads right now. So where to start? How do you kind of get started in automation? Obviously, there's a few tools out there. I personally started with one. I'm going to play a quick quiz show. Does anyone name that test tool? Anyone have a guess what this one is? Oh, close? No. Nope. It's actually Ranorex. So this is one of the first ones I used. It's actually quite nice because it's the UI I would probably describe as using kind of like Microsoft Word in terms of automation tool. So it's a bit easier to navigate if it's kind of your first time using a testing tool. It's not just kind of a command line type thing. So it's a little more approachable. So how I kind of found it is, UI friendly-ish. Kind of, if you want to kind of get the certification, it's a lot of studying. Again, a little similar to school. And how I kind of tested it and learned how to use it myself was automating social media posts. So I just played around with things like this, just trying to make some cool, fun quotes for the office and placing the logo in the correct spot. So this was a kind of a great kind of first step because I'm, again, using things that, social media is kind of a good skill to have right now too. Just kind of combine that with using a testing tool. So this is kind of like my learning curve right now. This is not a knight's helmet. This is supposed to be a little smiley face, but the PowerPoint wants to do what it wants, I guess. Yeah, interesting. So learning, kind of doing the Ranorex exam is kind of like a little learning curve as you're trying to memorize stuff. Then after that, I'm actually feeling pretty good. You kind of come on the other side of it. You can record any type of test that you really want to, whether it's mobile or just kind of doing browser automation. It's feeling pretty good. And then I got told my next project, okay, it's going to be this whole framework. It's going to be used with this new tool, Protractor. And you're going to jump right in. We've kind of developed this whole test framework. So I was like, okay, cool, sounds good. I'll give it a try. This is what I realized this was the actual learning curve that was happening. And this is me, a little stressed out, smiley. That's what that's supposed to be. Don't know why I was changing this right now. But yeah, so after kind of going in the first step, this is kind of what I felt the learning curve was. So I had a little chat with my test lead at the time saying, okay, I'm kind of jumping right into this. How can I kind of get up to speed on using tools like this a lot faster? So introducing kind of Protractor here, extra kind of skill for automation, something to add to your toolbox. So it was released July 2013. It's a solution integrator. It's kind of works on top of Selenium WebDriver, Selenium. And basically what this kind of is like if you were kind of buying like a cookbook or a recipe book for your kitchen. It comes with a bunch of extra instructions and tools, maybe how to prepare meat, how to grow your own veg, or if you're kind of a video game enthusiast, this is kind of like buying a video game and it comes with a bunch of extra bonus DLC instead of just buying the standalone game. So how exactly does it work? I'm not 100% sure yet. I'm still kind of learning things out, just like anybody else. Again, I've only used this tool for a few months, but I think that especially somebody who's just kind of seeing something for the first time, I think there's a way to kind of grasp the concept a lot faster, especially if you haven't used tools like this before. So everyone knows if you ever used like an online tutorial before, the very basic tutorial is pretty simple, just kind of follow those steps. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm getting the hang of this. You can follow the tutorial on the Protractor website. Anybody can do that. Pretty simple, okay, not too bad. So that's what I did in the morning, and then my test lead was like, okay, well, you're gonna start the actual project in the afternoon, so get as familiar as you can with it. So I was like, okay, I think I passed the tutorial, made it do stuff. Okay, bring it on. Okay, so then this is basically what it looked like in the evening or the afternoon there. I get to the client site, the test framework's already in place. I'm just like, basically like this. So I was like, how do I even begin to navigate this type thing? So for me, if you're using like a tool like Protractor instead of like more UI-friendly type framework like Ranorex, you need to use a little bit of imagination because not everyone's command line friendly and can kind of just jump in there and start using the code right away. So again, for me, the key is kind of creativity and imagination. So here's kind of the approach that my test lead and I kind of developed to approach this tool. And for me, it's all kind of centered around being really resourceful and kind of using things that you know. So what the goal is to kind of turn something like this into something a little more friendly, something that you're a little more familiar with. Now, this again isn't as sexy as like other UI interfaces, but it's all right start. Basically, just to kind of as an overview, Protractor just basically kind of needs 2 files to run. So this is just kind of part of the tutorial itself. And I'm going to be kind of using analogy as we go along. So the 2 files are just basically a config file and a spec file. So you could kind of think of these as your kitchen and then your recipes itself. So going to the analogy here. So if you guys remember, this is kind of me when I was around 18. This is actually quite similar to the kitchen I was actually working in terms of layout and everything like that. I went back and I thought, okay, well, how can I apply kind of learning a new skill from when I was 18 to learning this new framework that I'm encountering right now? So my first point is relay it to something that you know. So again, this was my kind of cooking station. You have all my pans and whatever you're making pastas and risotto dishes and things like that. What you have here is kind of where you do all your work. You have like a little screen up here. It would kind of read in the recipe as you would get an order. And then you'd have kind of like some standard tools, pots, pans, things like that. And then you would have your ingredients on the side here. And some of them would be kind of single ingredients, so maybe just like raw chicken or something. And some would be pre-mixed, maybe like a spice mix or the sauce is already kind of combined together. And then once you kind of cook your food, it goes here for kind of service out, and then you go send it to the customer. So this is basically how I kind of saw the current project that I was working on right now. A little special mention to Chef Mike. Chef Mike was actually the microwave in the corner that we may had to sneak a few things in there just in case we get in a bit of a rush. So I basically used this whole methodology and then started to apply it to the current project I was working on and using Protractor. So basically what happened was my actual cooking station turned into the actual part where I write the code. And then as you're going to see in a bit, that kind of the folders that hold the different files. Same thing as like kind of where I stored my ingredients. My kind of recipes just turned into my scripts. And Chef Mike turned into Stack Overflow. So if there's ever an emergency, I'd run to Stack Overflow and double check that real quick. But yeah, same thing, finish scripts, go to the test lead or project manager for approval, and then eventually gets delivered to the customer. So kind of expanding for how kind of Protractor looks a little bit. Basically, this is kind of your recipe, your cooking space. And then here on the side is the different things. Maybe your cupboard is where you keep all your ingredients. If you want to maybe scale it just to cooking at home, you don't have to use a restaurant analogy. But you can kind of divide all your different kind of tests and lines of code into different folders. So whether it's your ingredients, your kitchen tools, but again, the main thing you'll notice here is that your config and your spec files, they're always going to be the main things that your test needs to run. So this is basically, if I wanted to make a simple recipe, I'm going to like this Supercook website, if anyone's ever visited it. Basically, you just would put in an ingredient, and then it'll tell you all the possible things that you can make. But basically, I'm going to maybe be making an omelet, and this is my quick little recipe for making an omelet. So second thing that I kind of helped me navigate kind of around this framework is how do you pick out a few things. So I don't know if anyone's ever been to a Walmart Supercenter in the United States before. Hands up if you have. A few people, yeah. So you know, I know supermarkets here kind of come in all various shapes and sizes. However, Walmart Supercenters can come into multiple different floors, and if you're trying to find, you know, your favorite ingredient or something like that, it can actually get really difficult to do so. And it does help to actually maybe be specific, maybe mentioning the aisle instead of, yeah, I think it's next to the stuff that's over by the other stuff, that's by the blue stuff type thing. So what I kind of connected this to in the current framework is, like, for example, here again, we're using the Supercook website. If I want to maybe, you know, find an ingredient like eggs or something like that, and I'm trying to find it, inspect the element, if you actually copy the element, it would kind of give you something very vague like this. Okay, it's kind of next to this thing, it's inside this thing, over this thing. But what you actually probably want to do is use something a bit more specific and label your different ingredients in your test framework accordingly so you can find it faster. So second really important tip. Number two, kind of, well, continuing off number two, 2A, naming. Again, this is pretty much self-explanatory. Ideally, you're not naming your things thing one. And if it is apple, is this the chopped apple that you're putting in your apple pie, or is this apple going into an apple crumble or something like that? Again, somewhat common sense, but also good to know, especially if you're following a tutorial. You don't want to just label it step one, and you want to make sure that every function inside is doing something appropriately. Location, so again, when you had the folders on the side, you don't want to kind of jumble all your ingredients up in one space. If you're really efficient about this, you're having dinner guests over, something like that, having kind of an organized pantry really, really helps. So something like this, where if you're organizing by single ingredients or something in your Protractor tests, you're putting maybe all your ingredients in one space. And if you even want to, you can start dividing things out by, okay, maybe the seasonings go in another folder, and then maybe all the fresh veg go in another folder. So again, just ways of thinking of it so that you can organize your tests a bit better. So this is the OCD person's dream. This is what a lovely, nice organized test pantry looks like, or test cupboard. So again, thinking of this analogy really helped me and my test lead to, again, navigate the different test framework. So kind of putting this all together, the key thing here is that, again, this kind of cooking analogy, this works for me because, again, this was something that I did when I was younger, but whatever that experience was that you thought of earlier, that's the experiences and resources I encourage you to use and possibly other people in your team to use as well. So, you know, it could be using Lego bricks and kind of organizing them by colors, and then maybe you have a main workspace or work area, and that's how you want to think of it. Maybe you're a video game enthusiast and you've got your inventory and you're trying to soup up your main player, and how everything's kind of organized in your inventory is the way you think about it with your test automation as well, or your framework. So a quick demo here for just to get one Protractor test running, and as testers, I'm sure you're going to be keeping a keen eye on everything that you see here and noticing if there's any mistakes, because if you just went through the 4 points I just mentioned, there's going to be a few things that you'll notice. Oh, I guess I have to actually press play. There we go. So this is just a really quick kind of cooking demo. So this is kind of my kitchen. It just kind of is the general overview. You know, things like what kind of browser I'm going to be using, where's the recipe located, what kind of framework you want to use, and you'll see in a bit that I've got an instance of Selenium running. So yeah, that's just kind of pointing to that. So pretty simple to walk through. Again, this is very pseudocodey at the moment. Again, just really aimed for kind of beginners who are new to the tool. So this is basically my the kind of the recipe itself. I've got where all the ingredients are located kind of that I want to make with my recipe, where I'm going to find that, and then kind of simple step-by-step, just put some sleeps in, just so that you can kind of see what's happening. It doesn't run too fast. I know, sleeps are the worst, but just for the demo, I got some sleeps. Yeah. Yeah. So just an instance of the WebDriver running. So, because this is actually something, when I'm first learning it, runs some frustrations. Oh, why doesn't it run? Well, that was one thing that helped me and a few colleagues. Cool. So if I'm really hungry, I'm really lazy to find something, just have my automation running. Find me something to eat tonight, put it in, and maybe I like the easy peeling eggs, spoiled eggs. I don't like when it's really painful to take them off. And then here you go. And then I've got a recipe. And that finishes. So I'll ask in a bit if there's anything that you guys want to comment on or want to improve as testers from that. But basically, the whole key thing here is whatever your personal story, you want to always ask yourself, okay, well, how can you use that to create something amazing? So again, whether it's food, Lego, whatever your personal background experience, there's a way to kind of harness that to do really great work. And that's it. Questions? Yeah, Ash? Yeah. No? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You answered the question.
Okay.
About the
Yeah.
sleep.
Okay.
So what would you do instead of putting sleeps in there?
Protractor has a few kind of built-in functions, so it's usually a wait for element or something like that to pop up. So it's quite handy to use. Yeah.
How do you spell recipe?
I've been debating that one for the past 2 days. So yeah.
Is it the word pie?
Yeah. I maybe I was thinking of pie. I was just really hungry and thinking of pie, so subliminally I just went in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you not see the conversion chart?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
How do you check, like you want to go to boil egg?
Yes.
Easy to do boil.
Yeah.
How do you check when you're not viewing the browser that it's actually gone to that?
So Protractor also comes with a library of assertions. So there's a few particular ones that you want to see if the element exists. You want to see maybe if something contains text. Maybe you want a specific Mary Berry recipe instead of like a Nigella recipe. So you want to check to see if that recipe has that chef in there or something like that. But yeah, it'd be through a library of assertions. Yep. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Yep. AngularJS is what it was written for. So all the technologies it wraps together supports AngularJS, whether it's kind of using JavaScript online or applications built in Angular. Yep. All right. Cheers. Okay.
Right. Test number 1 didn't turn it all the way on, apparently. There's 3 sets. Right, so, as I was saying, this is an idea based on an idea I had in 2011, based on an idea that somebody a lot more intelligent than me had, and I ripped off. So, I'm calling this an emerging visual heuristic because it sounds really cool. But what it is a way of making my brain remember things that I forget. So, what you're going to do is hear about the periodic table of testing. Hopefully you will then understand why I developed it, because I'm old and decrepit and I can't remember things. Then you will see how I'm currently using it and how I think it might be used for other people and in the future and in other ways. So for those of you who don't know me, and I know there's a few in the audience that do, so you can be bored for 5 minutes. I have a background in audit and designing and testing management systems from way back in the sort of 80s and 90s and things like that. I've been in testing roles in a financial environment since 2004 because I love regulation. It's so cool to test in a really open environment with shitloads of regulation where everybody looks at everything you do on a daily basis. I worked in business intelligence, and that will come in later on with the another periodic table that I ripped off, which was the first rip-off, which led to this rip-off that I'm doing. Tested standalone applications, website testing, and finally, after a lot of people giving me a lot of shit for years, I have my own blog, which now has 3 things on it, which is really exciting, called thebigtesttheory.com, because I like the Big Bang Theory, and I thought it was a cool name, so I'll rip that off as well. So you might be seeing a theme. Stick with it because that's all I do. So I have lots of problems. At the moment, my main one is my daughter who's finished university. Great, I don't have to pay for any more. And is now doing a master's, which means I have to pay actually more than I used to pay. So, but for tonight's talk, the problems that I had was pretty much everything I learned about testing was by accident. It was based on the thing that was in front of me at the time. It was in front of me and I had to learn enough to get past it or do something, or at least convince somebody else I knew enough to get past the thing I was doing. Testing is a huge thing. All you have to do is do #testing on Twitter, and there's 100, if not 200-300 different subject matters that all come under the heading of testing. So not only do we have to test stuff, we have to be psychiatrists for software, we have to look at different things in different ways, we have to be the best diplomats in the world to teach all the other people who are so stupid they don't understand what we do, to tell them what we do and all that sort of stuff. So this massive world of testing that's out there.
It's like my brain coming out.
So this massive world of testing that's out there, and I promise I will at some point step out and be in the scary zone that's not safe behind the curtain. So I like learning about testing, I like discussing things about testing, I like learning about new things. But in terms of a plan, I didn't really know where I was going next. So this is me. This is an accidental learner. So a couple of years ago, I got back into full-time testing role. I was doing stuff that was related to testing, but we all know that's not as cool as actually day-to-day. Getting your hands on things, jumping in there, diving around, seeing what it does, and having interesting conversations about stuff. So I was an accidental learner. How can I change? What is my solution from being an accidental learner? Obviously, be a deliberate learner. Yeah, but I didn't really know how to do that either. So what I wanted, and everybody has wants and needs, as we know, but my wants and needs were have some structured learning in some form of plan so that I actually had an idea of what direction I was going in when I wanted to learn stuff. I wanted a defined but not concrete view of the world of testing. So it's not, well, what do I want to know, is what are all the possible things that I could know, or what are all the things that might be useful in context, see, I've linked it in with the first talk already, in context of what I'm doing now. Have some form of aid or heuristic to make me think about the things I could know, because I'm an older gentleman now, I've passed 51. So I don't have the brain of one of you young people out there who can think of 27 things and Google and do social media all at the same time while working on a skateboard in an office with slides and things like that. I can't do that, right? I have to take my Barocca in the morning, my ibuprofen, and then think about waking up for work. So I have a different brain, so I need help. And well, in general, I need help, which this talk's probably demonstrating. But I definitely need help. So, a view of the testing universe. This is basically how I felt. I was this little person in a whole universe of testing, and there's millions of different things, and there's like security testings over there, and that's a really cool thing, but what the hell is cross-strip? I can't even say the bloody thing now. What is hacking websites? There you go. Good recovery, isn't it? So, you know, there's all these different things and there's all these different cool stuff going on, but how do you see it all? How do you sort of get an idea of where it's going? So in one of the things I picked up in the past, there's all these knowns and all these unknowns, and they all relate together, and what you want to do is make your unknown unknowns into known things so that you know you don't know it, and then you can pull it all forward into these areas where you do know it, but you might not understand it. So you're following that? Because I can't repeat it, because I've had 3 beers, did I mention that? So, I was in a space where I got moved into business intelligence, and I started off as a tester, and then for some reason some idiot put me in charge of QA for the whole business intelligence area, which was really stupid of them because I knew nothing about business intelligence. I didn't know the view of the world. I knew some things, I could do a little bit, and I'd heard of SQL and could even spell it correctly with all the letters in the right order. So I was put in charge of QA long time ago, galaxy far away, and I had to think, right, how can I understand what the hell is going on? So the thing I ripped off for the thing that's going to be the thing that I'm going to be talking about became the periodic table of data. Now that was a visualization of the data warehouse at where I worked, split into columns using the principle of the periodic table to say, well, all these are related things, and these things are more important than these things, and these things carry more risk than these things, and some things are interrelated. So it visualized to me, and some other people got it, so I know at least one other person in the universe is getting some of the stuff on what I'm saying. You may or may not. Don't really care. I've had 3 beers. Did I mention that? So it basically is a layout of our whole data warehouse, and within each of those little things it told you, well, what table does it reside in? And I never got to finish this because I moved on, but within each one of these things is what table does this information relate in? Under there it said, well, where does it come from? So what table in the system that we're using does it come from? Under that, it told you all the possible inputs and changes that could happen to the piece of data that ended up in the data warehouse through the ETL process. Again, hopefully you're following this. Oh, I didn't know I'd done that. That's cool. So that might give you a better view, but you've got all your customer information on here. So you've got things like customer national insurance number, customer pattern. So there's all these customer information that comes under this. Then you've got all your transactional stuff. And as you see over here, properties can overlap depending on context. So you've got financial records, which proceeds in and proceeds out on a possession account. Because I come from a company that manages mortgages and loans and things like that. So if you have a mortgage and you don't keep up repayments, your house may be repressed. That little bit at the bottom that nobody knows, that affects loads of people, right? Especially since 2008. Let's all be sad for them. So that was the thing I did all the way back 2011, which led me to go, how can I have a view of the world of testing? I know that idea I ripped off of that really good idea that somebody brilliant did, I can rip it off again. So here's the periodic table of testing. So at the moment, I've got some testing, some technical, some personal, and some technique elements. I've divided them up and I've colour-coded them in no particular way, apart from I've called this an element. So under testing, there's things like customer web, manual, and data protection. So you can see that data protection covers security, user access, internal penetration. I've tried to think of all the different things. So version number 1, you can see this is version 1.4. Version number 1 had about half this in, because that was my brain dump. I then actually went out and started thinking about what are the things that come under customer testing, what are the things that are technical elements, what are the things that come under personal. So this is version 4. I wholeheartedly believe there will be many versions of this. I think that's why I use the word emerging visual heuristic. I believe it will tweak and turn over time. And hopefully, like I did with the periodic table of data, I will be able to dig into these and I'll be able to go, well, what types of living documentation there are, how can they be applied, what sort of things they are. That will hopefully lead to me learning to some things about whatever it is that I'm digging into at a particular time, and whatever I've decided is the direction I'm going on. Not that there won't be accidental learning while I'm doing it, because if something's immediate, I can go, oh, there's this thing, I'll look at that at the moment. But that gives you the idea that I'm trying to share tonight. So hopefully you'll have a look at that and you'll go, WTF? Why is that there? That doesn't make sense. And hopefully you'll have a look on my blog and you put some comments on, you give me some feedback, and you give me a lot of information that I can use to make this better. So, why did I do it? Well, obviously, so I can come to Leeds and talk to you. That was the only reason I did it. Good night. No. So the reason I did it was, as I've explained before, what the hell is the world of testing? Well, the world of testing is a bit more like a universe because it's a lot bigger than I thought when I first thought of doing this. I wanted to stretch my limit of understanding. So there's lots of things on here, and there's lots of things behind the things on here that I've started looking at and I've started thinking about and stuff like that. And I wanted to use it as some sort of map of, well, what do I want to learn next? What is useful to me today? What do I think will be useful to me tomorrow or in the future? So there are things I've got mapped out now. I've got little notebooks and stuff where I go, if I had nothing else to do and I wanted to look at something, I would look at this first and then I'd look at that. Bearing in mind, if I look at the first thing, that might lead me to something else. Which is the annoying thing about this and why it's always going to be changing and why it's on version 4. And I have had this knocking around for a couple of years, but it's been more for me as a thing to look at rather than a thing to share. And like I say, it was because people started bugging me and things and saying I should share stuff. So, how am I using it? So, at the moment, the first thing I've been doing is, do I understand this view of testing? If I work my way through all the cards that are on there, do I sort of have an understanding of what those things are? And if I don't have a basic understanding, if I don't have the whatever it is 101, as the Americans would say, I need to find out about it. So that's been my blanket approach to, I've got half an hour spare, I'm gonna have a look at and find out what the basics of each of these things are. Do I have enough understanding? And if I come across something really interesting, is that an opportunity to share what I found? Can I share those sorts of things? That's why there's only 3 things on my thing, because at the moment I'm looking at a few different things and I've got a lot of work and I'm technically on holiday. So are you happy I'm spending my holiday time with you? So there will be more stuff going on the blog. I will be explaining the things I'm looking into and the things I think about them. How could it be used? There are various ways. At work, I have a picture of this in my desk, and when we have something new or a new feature come up, I whip it out, much to the aghast of my colleagues at work, and I have a look through it.
Veto. Absolute veto.
It's an A4 bit of paper. There's nothing offensive in it. So I whip out my A4 bit of paper which has this on, and I go, right, what on here does apply to there? And do I already have the tools I need to do it? Do I need to look into something? Is there something I need to explore? So that's how I'm using it in terms of scope. In terms of career progression, somebody could look at this and go, oh, well, I work in testing, but I've never heard of half of those things in the table, so that could be a way of they can progress the career. In terms of technical, I declare myself a non-technical person. That means I don't want to write automation code, basically. I'm quite happy to read code. I'm quite happy to pair with developers on coding, and I'm quite happy to sit with the developer while they're writing code and bug them with loads of questions, going, why are you doing that? What are you doing that? That logic don't work. What are you doing this? So I have technical ability, but I class myself as a non-technical person. So a non-technical tester who's new to the world or has been doing it a while like me, but wants to get into that, could have a look at the technical elements and go, oh, I'm going to investigate this, I'm going to investigate that, whatever it could be. Another thing it can be used for, and I have an impending blog piece on relationships based on some real life experience I've done with personas in a current project, is what are the relationships between the things? So how can one thing, if you start with one thing, how can it lead to another thing on the table and lead to another thing on the table? So I've done this little bit of a relationship example. So if you're using some sort of mnemonics or oracles or some sort of thought technique of personas, it can lead to the application of, you can use that to do customer journeys or customer tours or whatever the thing you're using at the time. And once you've described them appropriately, you can use that to create living documentation and turn them into some automated tests. The blog piece that I'm working on and hopefully should be done before I finish my holiday and I'm back on work on Tuesday, so hopefully that should be fairly near, is we used personas to test a website. So in mortgages, there's loads of different states of mortgages, so you can be up to date, you can be in arrears, you can have an arrangement to pay, you can be in litigation, you can be in a possession. So there's lots of these different ones. So we give each of those statuses a persona, and then we use those to test different things on the website. We created a load of fake services, and we set it up so that if you had a number 1 at the beginning of your account number, you were always up to date. If you had a number 2 at the beginning of your account number, you were always in arrears. And if you logged in or signed in or registered as one of those different things, it gave you different help items and things like that. So we used fake services basically to test the entire UI without having a need for any back-end services. We obviously had back-end services in other places as well, but it basically meant we had a whole site that you could put in front of a client, not reveal any customer data, and show them how the whole thing worked as well, which the marketing people absolutely loved and had no idea how we'd done something so wonderful. It was hard in the beginning, but once we got it going, it sort of all fell in itself. So, what are the potential evolutions of the periodic table of testing? Well, all the elements could change or be given different names. I keep hearing metacognition here, there and everywhere, thinking about thinking, or having knowledge about knowledge, and all these different things, and how it's a way of looking at approaches and different things like that. So instead of having thought techniques in there, I could have a metacognition table. There's loads of different ways it could go. Test data. I think test data is potentially, if you've got a large customer base, test data is one of the most important things that you can think about and use when you're testing. So that could be its own category, and there's loads of different things you could do under there. Tacit knowledge could be explored. Yeah, that's one of the hardest things to think about. Internet of Things, if you're working in that space, you could have an Internet of Things that refers back to all the other stuff. You could use an Internet of Things approach and list all the things that you think about on the scope. So I've got no expectations that we'll ever be everything in that periodic table. Hopefully there'll be a lot of value in it, and there'll be a lot of useful things on it, and there'll be a lot of things that you can look at and you can refer to, and you can go, oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Thank you, this thing. Yeah, I must have an old man's brain too. So, hopefully, doing this talk, you've all looked at it and you've all gone, oh, ain't that brilliant, or what load of crap. Now, either way, I'm quite happy if you'd have those thoughts, as long as you tell me why you think it's good or you think it's bad. As I said, I've got a blog post. You can hit me up on Twitter. Anything you can think about that feeds back and gives me useful information on how this can be used, how I can improve it, anything that's missing, anything that you think, well, there's 7 things on there and they all mean exactly the same thing in my opinion. That's fine. Anything like that is useful. What do you agree? What do you agree with? What's missing? What should I be learning first? That's quite a good one. I've got a list of things, but based on people's feedback and things that are happening at the moment, that list is constantly changing. So things jump up, there's changing priorities. Like with your context-driven customers, they're saying, today this is the most important thing, but tomorrow I'll tell you what the most important thing is then. So, as I said at the beginning, you've now heard about the periodic table of testing, which was one of my goals. Hopefully you've got some understanding of how I developed it, why I'm ripping brilliant people off to do things in my own different way. And you've seen how I'm using it in my current job and possibly some ideas of how it could be used. Are there any questions? Yes? Sorry, you were first.
So, I guess my main question is, you've mentioned a lot that you've been using it. Have you been handing it around to anyone else in like a team that you're in or anything like that? And sort of, what if you have, like, what have they thought about it, and has it come to any good use there?
I haven't had a lot of internal feedback. It's been up on my blog, and I've been waiting to share my blog at work, but because it's a brand new blog, it gets blocked by our WebSense thing, saying this is a new website. Oh my God, we can't possibly let you anywhere near this thing because it might be dangerous. Now in the UK, it's literally, I checked on Wednesday, and on Tuesday you couldn't access it, but on Wednesday you could. So on Wednesday I shared it around work and said, I've got this website, it's got this thing on it, have a look at it. So I haven't had much internal feedback at the moment. I have sort of talked individually with a few guys on the things and shown them it, and there's been some interest, but again, because it's a relatively new thing, I haven't had a lot of feedback. So this is a way of me getting it out to a few more people and hopefully actually getting people to talk to me back.
I was going to ask a similar question actually, but I wondered if you used it to coach anyone, because to me it seems a really good tool that you could use personally. I mean, it's very personal, because like you say, it doesn't cover everything. There's so many things on there that are going to be normal.
Mm.
But it seems a really good thing that you could use as a learning aid for someone that you're coaching.
Yeah.
I wondered if you'd ever done that.
Well, at Test Atelier, I did a talk on building an internal test community at work. So I do quite a few. I do a few presentations on that, and that's the next one I'm doing. Is a smaller version of this that I can do at a lunchtime at work. And I'm going to be saying, here's the thing, this is how we could use it. And I'm going to do it as a roundtable discussion rather than a presentation. So I'll just give them the very basics of where it came from, what the idea was, and get some instant feedback away feedback. So that the next one, I think, is on the 14th of July, is our test exchange. So that'll be the basis of that test exchange, which will be to go through this and get some feedback. We usually have about between a dozen and 15 guys come to the test exchange, so hopefully that should be an interesting.
So you know the actual, can you go back to it? Is that right?
Yeah, of course.
So,
The big one.
yeah, so what came first, the tiles or the categories at the bottom?
A lot of these were in my head. A lot of these of areas of testing were in my head, and I started basically writing a list of different things. So I basically started with a whole an Excel spreadsheet with a list of different things, and then I thought, well, actually, if I use the principles of the idea that I ripped off previously with the periodic table of data and started grouping them together, so it started off with well, what are the testing things, and then what are the technical, and so it took me a while to shuffle things around. And I ended up like getting a load of little blank cards and writing them out and shuffling around on a desktop and things like that and working out. And I've used the word elements, but whether that's the right word or it's the right context for it, again, I'm hoping people will give me feedback. And I've got subcategories under those, but again, whether they're all in the right place or whether the relationships are correct. Like I say, I've shuffled it around quite a bit. There's 4 different versions. I've changed colours, but basically I've just done all this in an Excel spreadsheet and buggered around with it. But yeah, as I say, it's an emerging thing, so I don't think it'll ever be complete. And I think somebody might take that away and change it for them as a personal thing, which I'm quite happy to do.
If you look at technical testing, so technical and then testing is in inverted commas, and it's just so you. You just expressed your own views with it.
Well, it would be me. I did it. Any more? Yes?
You had mentioned, because kind of created this movement to a bit more like kind of structured learning. Let's say you want to become proficient in Chaos Monkey, for example. What kind of metrics are you using to kind of measure that progress along the way?
Absolutely none. Now, that's not saying somebody can't take this and apply their own metrics to it. So if I wanted to measure myself on actionable insights, which again I've ripped off from Ash because I heard him use it and I thought that was really good. Okay. So it's been there are new. So if I wanted to measure myself on actionable insights, I might want to say, well, I want to get positive feedback on 3 things I fed back to somebody else. So there are metrics you can apply to all of this. In terms of lots of them, there are lots of already established metrics that you can go and find and you can apply to your own learning if you want. Ash did a talk that I saw at New, and I think you've discussed it in other places, about his wheel of testing. And his wheel of testing describes his world of testing and tell me if I'm wrong here, from an inside out, what are my values sort of way. I'm doing this from more of an outside in, what are the things kind of way. So from Ash's wheel of testing, he would maybe have his own metrics of, am I being an advocate for testing? Am I getting out there enough and talking to different audiences? And I know Ash goes around and he doesn't just do testing talks, he does his testing orientated talks to different areas, so that might be his metric. But in terms of me, my first metric is, do I know what all those words mean in context of this table? So Do I know what pairing means to me in context of this table? And am I doing it? Do I know enough about it? I think I can read code reasonably enough to pair with a developer and feedback, and the team I work with at the moment quite often, but not always, welcome me pairing with them. And
Because no one gets to write any code, right?
no, they get to write lots of code, but sometimes they really appreciate all the questions I ask, and sometimes they're having a shit day and they don't want me there. So I have told them, if you don't want to pair at this particular moment in time, I can do a code review and then we can talk later and stuff like that. So in terms of, like I said, metrics, literally non-official ones, but I'm sure anybody can find things to apply to them for their own context. If that makes sense.
Have you ever thought about automating or pairing with someone to automate it?
Automate it.
You could automate the production of it from like it's interesting. You said you got it in an Excel spreadsheet, but you could hold the data anywhere and just create a package that automates something like this, say on the website or something like this. That'd be an interesting thing to look at. It's sort of similar to what Fullbrooks do with their radar. So you can create a Google Doc and just build it wherever you want to build it, just using a package on.
So you can have lots of people's tables.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
In more alcohol-fueled moments, I did have this vision in my head of having my blog as anybody can put anything in as long as they describe the context of it. So where it fits under an element and where it have a thing, and having a dynamic thing that would produce. So anybody can put their own elements in and it'll produce it, or they could select from a list and produce their own. But it's literally quite new, and in terms of web development and design and stuff like that, I'll be begging people to help me to get anywhere near that sort of stuff. So at the moment, no. But in the future, maybe.
It's because you don't want to code it.
I don't want to code it, no. No, I know some people who are really good in terms of web development, so I'll just bully them into doing it.
What if you reached that vision and then people wanted to put something in there and you really didn't agree with it, but you've made it open source?
Why not? It's an idea I have. I don't own all these things. I don't own how this is set up. If somebody wants to take this and change 50% of it, I'm more than happy to do it, as long as they mention me so I can have a look at what they've done with it. That's absolutely fine. I'm not precious about it. I don't see this being an industry. I don't see this being. I see a speaking career. I don't see that. Other than sharing the idea, hopefully at a few more conferences and stuff. If people feedback that this has been interesting and useful to hear. So I can get to some test bashes without paying ridiculous money to get through the door. If people think this is a good idea and it's useful to share, I'll share it with more people. Hopefully that'll generate more feedback. And people getting... Basically, all I want is... This was for me to start with, but when I've mentioned it to other people and shown other people, they've gone, oh, this is really good. You can maybe do this with it. You can maybe do that with it. Have you, why aren't you sharing this with people? So... Now I'm saying I am sharing it with people. So hopefully people will take this away. Even if they only go, oh, Chaos Monkey, I really want to find out how I can test my shite being a Chaos Monkey. Which basically means going with the keyboard. In certain contexts. So yeah, that's me.
If you ever propose using the Chaos Monkey at HTML, can I be that?
I do. I am the Chaos Monkey at HTML. It's like if you the first talk we had, there was a lovely statement of don't follow best practice and procedures, just play. That's basically all I do, go to work to do. I just play. I have to feed the man. I have to do test cases, but as I was saying in a conversation earlier, one of my test cases is full regression test. And the description...
don't say that.
I do, because it passes an audit.
See me after.
All right. But the content of that test case has one step, and it says, do a full regression test. This may take several hours. Right? But we have an audit plan that says we will do regression testing. So all my projects pass audit because it says I have a regression test. Right? So I am feeding the man, but when I do regression testing, I just play. I have lots of stuff depending on the context of what we change that I will look at first, and then there are some stuff we do. But we have automated testing and living documentation. So a lot of
Can't fully regression test anything.
for audit purposes, it is a full regression test. Even it may take hours. Sometimes it's taken me 15 minutes, right? Because there's only been one thing changed since last time we did it, and I've focused on that, right? So for audit purposes, there is a full regression test, right? For normal people's purposes, it's me fucking around for a bit. Yes, dear.
It is a proper question. He knows. Do you have anything yet to kind of try and link elements of it together? Because for me, this is something I would love to bring back to kind of my guys and some of the projects I've been on and going, right, this is why I'm suggesting we do that, because it fits really well with this and this and this and this. So if you kind of started to interlink more and...
Well, as I was saying, I'm going to do a persona blog piece, and it's sort of going to describe the journey we did with personas through to the different end-to-end testing we did and the different customer tours and journeys and stuff. So I'm going to do that. But in terms of in terms of the bigger picture, there are definitely things that interlock throughout those whole things. And if you were building up scope for a testing thing, you'd take some from there, some from there, some from there, and put it all together. Not necessarily in order. It could be all jumbled up of going, well, in terms of risk, these are the things we want to do first, and those are the things we want to do, but we can do them last, or we can, if we run out of time, we'd rather have done these things. So you can use this as building blocks in lots of different ways. In terms of risk-based testing, you can say, we believe the highest risks are in the data or in the things or in the security or whatever it might be, and you can literally, you could line them all up in a line from end to end and go, we want to do that in that order, but it might be you've got one there, 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 one there.
Well, so I know you've been working on this for a while and you are going to continue to develop it and everything else, but is that one of the, is there going to be a point in your blog where I can go in and go, right, so you've said something about session-based testing, what works well with that, what complements that, what is my argument to my client that this is why we want to do that because you're doing these 10 things over here and that works really well with it.
Well,
For me to bugger off and go and do it myself. I'm getting really bored doing that.
Well, I've done a lot of session-based testing, so I already have that knowledge. So if you want me to do a blog post on session-based testing related to this,
So do I, but I did spend 3 weeks with the client trying to explain to them what it was, and they still don't get it. So
right, so well, yeah, if you think that's the best next thing for me to do as a blog post, I can look at that.
it would save me having to go and do it. Just direct them to your website.
That's because it's you, Laura. Once I've got my relationship persona one up, I'll have a look at that next.
Yeah.
Any more? All right, thank you very much.